I wanted to know what are the best fantasy books according to BookTok, the top 20 of all time. And today we're gonna see that answer because I immersed myself in watching countless BookTok videos, and as a result I got more than 100 books mentioned. But what I did is to narrow that list down into the top 20 following these rules. First, I narrowed down the search to 21 creators that are specialized in fantasy and that are fairly popular in BookTok. Then I extracted those videos that were kind of like top 20, top 10, top 5 best fantasy books of all time. If a video was already ranked, I respected that ranking. But if the books weren't ranked, I gave more points to the books that were presented at the end of the video than the ones that were presented at the beginning. And I was very surprised for some of these books, especially the ones that were in the 13th and in the second position. Let me know if you're surprised as well. And let's start with the 20th position, starting with something that it's no news in that it's very popular both in BookTube and in BookTok, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is at its core a Beauty and the Beast retelling, at least book 1, because things really changed from book 2 onwards. And what we see here, it's a great portal fantasy, even better romance, great banter between the characters, an amazing family found vibe, and within fantasy, especially fantasy romance, this group of people, this family found vibe, it's one of the most loved within the community, and I really think it's fantasy and romance at its peak. I really enjoyed it. And here come the surprises, because in one hand we will have Juniper and Thorn. This is a pretty dark fairy tale and it's a standalone as well. I haven't heard much about this book, and honestly it's not that well known in Goodreads, so to me it's really exciting to see it here and see it being praised as a good. It seems that this is going to be a retelling of this fairy tale and that it will be pretty twisted. We will have the story of this girl that it's a witch. She and their sisters are kind of like the last remnants of this witchcraft that we will see in this world, that it has a little bit of magic and technology blended. And the thing here is that these sisters are really oppressed by their father, which is a very powerful wizard. It seems that a terrible evil it's emerging and that our girl will need to defy her father and, defeat wherever it's coming while falling in love. It seems to be a book that we need to check for trigger warnings, but nonetheless I'm fascinated about it and 100% will read. And the other surprise is Blood Trials, which is the beginning of a duology that it's supposed to be a blend between fantasy, sci-fi, and we will follow our girl who is a black woman and she will be fighting in these trials that are extremely racist and misogynist. So things are not on her side. It seems that it's super fast-paced and people it's really raving around it. And we continue this list with Once Upon a Broken Heart. It's an unconcluded trilogy, and to me this is great because it has one of the best slow burns that I've read in my life. We will follow this beautiful world building, these characters that are really new ones that are not perfect, and the story it's full of whimsy, full of magic, adventure, and overall pining. First book it's alright, but the second book it's truly phenomenal. And we'll follow this girl that wants to do something related to her love. She will align herself with people that shouldn't, and a terrible thing will happen that she will need to unravel, and she will be placed in the same path as Jax, who is one of these legendary creatures that is all about himself, and the story will unfold from there. I promise it's great. With 16 points, and therefore in the position 16 and 15 we will have Stranger Dreamer and Kingdom of the Wicked. Starting with the latter, Kingdom of the Wicked, it's this trilogy that it's a good blend between romance and fantasy. It leans more towards young adult in the first book, and then from 2 onwards it's more of a new adult kind of story, and you will have at its core a story that talks about witches and prince demons. First book it's really into a mystery, and we will have our girl Emilia trying to figure out and discover who has killed someone that she really loves, and along that way she will align herself with this prince of hell that is Wrath. In this world, there are these 7 different princes of hell, and each of them are representing one of the 7 deadly sins, which I thought was really incredibly and unique. There's not tons of chemistry in my opinion. I think it's fairly fast-paced, and although you won't forever remember this story, the characters will, remain with you for a long time. And then we have Strange the Dreamer. This duology, it's a whole thing for me. I started reading again, like heavily, 2-3 years back, and Strange the Dreamer was one of the books that got me into that reading. I just love how Laini Taylor was able to create a story that is at the same time sad, it's beautiful, it's adventurous, it's a slow pace, but it's beautiful, stakes seems high, magic, it's unique, it has lots of stuff that I really enjoyed. It leans more towards the descriptive setting, but it's not heavily overloading the story with details that doesn't matter. This was a good example of something that you can clearly see, and our 2 different points of view will help us move the story forward in such a good way. And we will follow one of the main characters, Laszlo. He has always believed in this magical city called Weep. No one remembers the city or these people, and one day people from here come seeking help, and Laszlo will be first jumping to their help. But upon arriving, he will discover that something is quite amiss, and the story will unfold from there. In the top 14 and 13 and sharing 17 books, we have 2 series that are completely opposite. In one hand, we have These Hollow Vows, which is a fantasy romance duology. It leans way to the young adult spectrum, and we will have this blend of what you might expect if you read A Court of Thorns and Roses and The Cruel Prince. We have this portal fantasy where our main character hates the Fae, but she will need to get into the Fae world in order to save her sister. And in this world, there are 2 main kingdom of the Fae, kind of like the golden and the shadow, the good and the bad ones, and she will find herself aligning with the bad ones because she needs to retrieve something for the good ones to save her sister. There's a love triangle in here, and although it isn't a story that is like super unique or that draws from elements that you've never read before, it is nonetheless a story that will read really fast. You want to keep reading. It's a fast read, and you want to know more. There's a little bit of magic, and I thought that was, it's a comfort read to me. And in the other hand, we have The Poppy War, the trilogy, and this is savage, this is dark, this is hard, and this will change you. Perfect for adult readers that love war-driven stories, because this is mainly about a war. This series has the most grey character that I've read in my life. I had so much trouble connecting with this character because Rin, it's not a likable character. She is imperfect in so many ways, and this book follows her story as she starts a year in this martial school, but soon after a war stands to be unraveled, and she and everyone else will need to play a role here. The things that we will see are so hard. I hated this book for 6 solid months because I was so mad with everything that happened, and then I thought, well, if I hate it that much but I'm still thinking about it, it's because I think it's great, and therefore I love this book. It's one of my favorites of all time. In the top 12, and this is a huge surprise to me, and let me know if it is also to you, we have One Dark Window. This sounds, however, phenomenal, and I will 100% read this. It seems that we will follow our girl Elspeth, and in this world there's this kind of shadowy magic, and she has this monster in her head that seems to help her. But in this world that it's supposed to be fairly dark, she will be embedded in this quest, in this mission, to find 12 cards that also have magic. So it's dark, gothic, atmospheric, and with good magic, What else do we need? And in the top 11 and top 12, we have two books that are sharing the 19 points. And we will start with Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer. I read the first book and I did not continue with the series. So what can I say? I understand that it's here because it had lots of good stuff, but to me it wasn't as good, and I'm not really loving it. But this story follows two points of view in this world where there seems that there's a terrible sickness that it's savaging the land, and we will have one of these points of view that it's Tessa, and she is kind of like a thief and an apothecary, and she's trying to steal these flowers that are the only remedy for this sickness. The thing is that these flowers are only held by the crown, and therefore we'll have the point of view of this king that it's guarding everything, and nothing is as it seems. The path of the two will collide, and we will see how the story unfolds. It's a story about romance, about saving the people, about fighting against all odds. For me though, I expected most of the themes that I saw here, and it was a good story, but it was fine to me. And in the 10th position, we have From Blood and Ash. This is one of the most popular fantasy romance that you can find now. This has consumed BookTube, and it has lots of lovers and lots of haters. I started really loving this series, but upon a reread, which I'm currently doing, I'm not loving this series as much. However, it's very easy to get into it. The romance, it's fairly spicy, and although it starts being really more romance oriented, it develops into a better constructed fantasy world. However, the big downside for me here is that the pace is fairly broken in most of the books, at least to me, and the world building, it's very infodumpy as well. There are good elements, and the dynamic between the characters, I thought it was really consuming, and it's a book that if you want to get something that it's a spicy with a feisty character and a cocky main male character, this is for you. And from here onwards, we will have stories that lean way more towards the adult fantasy side with some exceptions, and we will stop in the top 9 with An Ember in the Ashes, the quartet. This, although it's young adult, leans older, and I think that it's a fantastic, both if you want to start reading fantasy as if you're a seasoned fantasy reader. It has this great Roman imperial setting, but it's merged with some soft magic system. There's a lot to it, and it's a story that will follow different points of view. One of them is of Elias. He is the son of this commander, and he is about to start this very deadly trial. So book 1 will be heavy on that theme, and when I'm talking deadly, it's deadly. But he is not what we might expect. He wants to break that path, and then we will follow our girl Laia, and she is part of a revolution that it's emerging. It really packs a punch to the heart. It has really great twists and turns. The evil characters are really bad, and this is the kind of book that you can easily fall. I thought the world building was fantastic, and it's overall a great read. In the top 8 and 7, and sharing the 22 points, we have In One Hand, The Faithful and the Fallen by John Wayne. I'm really surprised about these being here, although it's a pleasant surprise. I've been wanted to read Malice for a while, and now the hype is there, and I just cannot wait. This is a highly epic fantasy where we will follow different points of view in this massive war that it's emerging between the humans and the giants. It seems that there's this prophecy about a black sun that it's emerging and this bright star as well, and they will need to find these two forces, and I just cannot wait to read this. And in the 7th position, we have Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Also very surprised that this is here. It has everything that you want from Sanderson, incredible characters, a heist at its core that quickly evolves throughout a revolution, a great setting where the evil one has been ruling for hundreds of years, and a very charismatic cast of characters. There's also this hard magic system that you won't recover from because it's based on allomancy. People can ingest metals, and those metals will grant them special powers. They can fly, they can persuade great people, and you will be hooked to those pages from the beginning to the end. I think it's a classic from Sanderson, something that is really accessible. It has a little bit of romance, a great amount of adventure, lots of drama. It packs an emotional punch. The stakes are massive. Perfection. In the top 6, and I cannot be happier that this is here, we have The Boneshire Daughter, so The Drowning Empire by Andrea Stewart. This is just so good. We have different points of view in this story that will span across this massive land, and we will see how this land was consumed by these enemies that came from afar, and as a result the emperor kind of like developed this magic where he and his family is able to inscribe instructions in small bones, put these bones together, create constructs, and then rule these constructs for this fight. The thing is that these bones are from people, and these constructs live because they are sucking the life of people. Now though, it seems that this evil has passed, and we are kind of like in the aftermath of all of that. But still, the emperor has this magic, and these constructs are still there. So population, it's like, no, I don't want this anymore. And we will follow one of these points of view, who is of the daughter of the emperor. She will need to learn anew all of this magic because she does not remember anything from her past. Another point of view will be of Jobis, who is just seeing how these islands are drowning, how an evil might be emerging, and he wants to be on his own, but he will be kind of like an anti-hero kind of character who will find this animal companion that I am absolutely in love with. I was super surprised about the twists and turns that it had. It has also a little bit of sci-fi, of horror. It just phenomenal. In the top 5 we have Dance of Thieves, which I read because of BookTok. It is very easy to get into this story. We will have 2 points of view, and to me it felt really similar to Bridge Kingdom in terms of tropes and how overall the story is structured. We will have this character that is a thief and that will need to infiltrate this family that it's kind of like in power, and although everything is very fade to black, the passion between these characters will be manifested very early on, and they will need to fight those feelings for either the kingdom or the families. In terms of pacing, it's not that it's fast or that we have tons of stuff, but just the thing that she is a thief just made everything to be so fast. And in the top 4 with 26 votes, we have Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. I haven't read this, but I've heard so many good things about it. And we'll follow the story of this thief that will have this mission of retrieving a sword. But while doing so, he will find himself in a way more complicated situation because it seems that he will be framed for the murder of the king. He will need to be on the flee. There's a lot of political scheming, and we will need to follow our main characters through this situation. It has a 4.22 stars on Goodreads with more than 60,000 ratings, so it's a fairly popular book and I cannot wait. In the top 3 we have Six of Crows, which, yes, of course it deserves to be here. It's an amazing duology set in the same world as The Shadow and Bone. This duology, it's perfect if you love heist, if you love complex characters with different perspective, different motivations, romances that are not given, that are complex, like our characters will need to fight. And although this is not a book that it's super heavy on magic, it has characters that are truly outstanding. It's just everything, it's so rich. They feel as real characters. We'll have situations that are really heartbreakingly painful, and I guarantee you that you won't be able to stop rooting for some of these characters. And in the top 2 and 1, sharing 32 votes, we have in one hand the Devabat trilogy. I've only read the first book, City of Brass, but really enjoyed it, and it seems things just go upwards from here. It's a very rich story set in this Arabian setting where we will have Argyle that seems to have a tiny little bit of magic, and she will find this gene, and together they will find this city of the gene, and the story will unfold from there. This is a story that has great romance, great adventures, great world building and setting, everything seems so lush, so vivid. I just couldn't stop reading this story. It's complex. There's a fair amount of politics involved in this story and also great action scenes. I really enjoyed it. And last but not least, you have Stormlight Archive, but you can say that even Devavat is top 1, and that's also why I'm very surprised, because I thought this was gonna get so many more votes that it had, but it didn't. Maybe because each book it's chunky and it's unconcluded, so definitely those are things that you need to have in mind, but this is also a top fantasy read for me. It's phenomenal. The way in which Sanderson was able to craft these characters representing very deep and diverse mental illnesses, I thought was mind-blowing. There's also a fight between different races, a war at its core in this story, but in this human side of the war, there's still different facets and all of them are fighting. These characters are evil. The magic system really evolves throughout the different books, and it's the kind of magic that you need to read in order to understand. But just know that the world it's full of magic, that there's these creatures that are everywhere and that are magic in itself, and that you need to master that and follow some rules in order to access more magic. It's really truly outstanding. It has the best endings that I've read in my life. Never. I've cried, I've laughed, I just been mad for so long. This just combines so many emotions, and it is outstanding. I love it so much. Let me know down below if you agree or not with this list. What are the ones that you were most surprised about? Because I cannot wait to see your comments.